Shields up, Ironbreakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another episode of the Third Fleet Podcast. This is episode 59. Gaijin Hunter, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good. I just got married.
Yeah. I guess both of us kind of did.
Yeah. Getting married in an MMO for the goodies is always a fun time. But no, I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm doing good.
Pumped.
I've been living in an Elden Ring, basically like isolation. It's been so incredibly hard to basically just every time I go on YouTube, I'm going like, what?
Oh
What?
my gosh, you got to
Dude,
dodge everything.
I'm really sad because there are so many people that are putting stuff in thumbnails that I'm just like that. I would rather not have seen that. I would much rather not have seen that, but now I did. Thank you. But
we just rolled
easy.
credits yesterday or the day before. And the day before, we rolled credits at about 92 hours. We've been playing it pretty hardcore as well.
I think,
and we're doing cleanup now, but it's really fun.
I think at the
despite some of the bosses.
I think at the rate I'm going to be rolling credits maybe next month.
3 months.
Maybe.
Yeah. I'll give you 2 months. 2 months. 2 more months.
I don't know because it's just been really slow, but it feels so good. It's like it's a brand new adventure every time that I sit down to record. So that's been a blast. And the channel hasn't imploded from me just like uploading nonstop let's plays of friggin' Elden Ring. So that's been a pleasant surprise as well. So yeah. But we wanted to talk today to guys. This is going to be a little bit of a shorter podcast because obviously, as you guys know, there's not really a whole lot of news at the moment in Monster Hunter. There is going to be news next week, but we wanted to sit down and kind of
excited about that.
Yeah, I'm pumped as well because we haven't heard anything for a while. But it's like we wanted to sit down and kind of like set a little bit of expectations for people because one of the things that we still find is that a lot of people don't understand some of the differences between what is a base game version, what is an ultimate version, the two Monster Hunter development teams and stuff like that. There's a lot of people that are still confused whenever we talk about Monster Hunter 6 and people are like, Rise is Monster Hunter 6. And it's like, well, not really. But so today we're going to sit down and just kind of like talk about that stuff so that people realize what to expect from the event that is going to be happening next week, which I will be streaming, and then me and Gaijin will be talking about it in next week's podcast as well. But we'll start things off by talking about the two teams kind of like that Monster Hunter has, right? So, Gaijin, I'll let you get started on this because you have way more experience in this stuff than I do because you also live in Japan and all this stuff. So tell us about the two teams that work on Monster Hunter. I mean, now it'd almost be like 3 teams, right? Because we also have the stories.
It's more than 2.
Yeah. So tell us about that.
And when you say teams, they swap members all the time. Like they're going in between. One guy will produce on one, produce on the other. The game designers are working on both or one or the other. Like it's just, at any given time, they're working on 2 Monster Hunter games, right? So traditionally, how this all started was all the way back. And today, actually, when we're recording this, is the 18th anniversary for Monster Hunter. So huge congrats to Monster Hunter on the big achievement. But it started after they did Monster Hunter on PS2. It was supposed to be an online game, right? Like that was like the big thing. We want an multiplayer online game. And so they went off to, Tsujimoto, our beloved producer, he was basically, his expertise was in broadband and like network engineering type of like network games. So, which is why they brought him on. Because it was supposed to be an online game. And so like he got in on the series because of that.
I remember that my friend who got me into Monster Hunter, he was the one who would tell me back in the PlayStation 2 days about how he had purchased this separate dongle to the console that you would actually hook it up to have like and it was, I'm not sure if it was actually internet access. You would just like connect it and it would go to the internet and whatnot. And it was like such a weird thing, particularly in Portugal at the time, because like we were barely connecting our own computers to the internet, and this friend of mine was connecting his PlayStation 2 to the internet specifically to play Monster Hunter because he wasn't playing anything else online in that thing. It was just like Monster Hunter. That was the thing, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. So once they came out with the game on PS2, the PSP was starting to take off in Japan, and that being a very community-driven machine because it's portable. I mean, portables have always crushed the consoles here in Japan because of that.
Yeah.
It's just, being able to play on the go after school, after work, during lunch breaks, that type of socializing. It's not like people just go to each other's houses outside of in major cities to play games and hang out like we do in the West, so to say. So having PlayStation Portable having its own LAN network, which was wireless, you just had to be next to somebody and boom, you were online together.
Ad hoc thing,
it's unbelievable. We take it for granted today, but that was a heck of an advancement for technology and gaming. Like that was the catalyst for online gaming, basically. But ad hoc was sweet. So it made it so people can play online without having to connect to an internet connection or anything like that and just play with their friends. So they said, okay, Ichinose was a director in Capcom, and they asked him and a very small team, I think it was like 8 people. It was like really small. They said, can you port over this game to the PSP in like 6 months? And so in like half a year, they ported over the game, but they found it was really easy. They're like, it wasn't that we were like geniuses. They're like, it was actually really painless. Like the PSP was pretty darn powerful and everything worked really well. They're like, and the whole ad hoc is just, it's really well done. So he said, it wasn't that challenging for them. And then obviously they saw good success on that. So Monster Hunter Portable was born, and that was basically the Monster Hunter G. So you had Monster Hunter that was released on PS2. Then they made Monster Hunter G, which was basically they couldn't stop working on the game and keep adding stuff. So they said, okay, let's just make an enhanced version of the game.
Yeah, because
some of the features got into the Western version early.
People need to understand that at this time, live service games were not a thing. So you wouldn't just be able to like repeatedly patch your game and whatnot. So it's like, we're working on this game. We got to make like a new version. You would release an actual expansion. And it's interesting that you say that the PSP was so easy to develop, because like it almost makes you wonder what happened to Sony from the PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 3, because everybody says that development for PlayStation 3 was like nightmare.
Nightmare. I mean, they lost Monster Hunter because of it. They literally pulled the plug on Monster Hunter Tri. They announced it for the PlayStation 3, and they were developing it for over a year, and then they completely canned it and started over on the Wii because they said this machine sucks.
Wait, they actually said that the machine sucks?
In an interview, they said that there was too many technical hurdles to get over. It was just
wow.
It was getting in the way of development, so they decided to move over to the Wii for development reasons. So,
damn.
Oh yeah, that wasn't. That's just pure technical reasons, because Capcom has always liked to focus. They're very focused on hardware, and they don't seem to really care or have favorites. They like all the hardware, but the Monster Hunter teams in general like to focus on one target hardware and really develop something that's new, advances the formula, but is tailored very specifically to that device, right? So like if it was a 3DS, they chose it because they said, there's new things we can do with a touch screen and separating the map from the top screen. Like it inspired them. They had lots of different ideas of things that they wanted to do. And my guess is that at the same time, the Vita didn't really inspire them, because while the Vita is a wonderful machine, it was marketed horribly here in Japan. And a lot of the features didn't really have much of a use for in the game, right? It was just, 2 analog sticks, great. You didn't have to claw. A touchable back panel, weird. Good for, soft porn games, I guess. Horny time, but, giving back massages to your characters in the game, I don't know. But it was just a really weird thing. Sony dropped the ball in for lots of different reasons. But
it's funny that you say in Japan, because like at least in Japan the Vita had a scene.
Oh, it ballooned in the West after it crashed.
In the West, it was like this. The Vita was like, it's gone.
Yeah, but people got to remember, like Japan is not just like they'll just eat up anything. Like the 3DS was bombing here after it was released. It was bombing everywhere. And then they turned the ship around, and it was unbelievable. But the Vita as well, like it did really bad, and then it found its own niche, and all of a sudden people were making tons of games. There was like 30 games coming out like every week here, and just like a few years ago.
And
like,
Defeata's niche
unbelievable amounts.
in Japan was softcore porn games.
Not really. I mean, I say that as
I'm joking.
There
were
is a lot of that,
but,
actually.
Yeah, but
there's a lot of them, but it's also half in jest. There was actually a lot of really good games as well, but
yeah,
it almost became like, not like indie because they're not indie games, but it came more like the AA budget game machine, where lots of experimental fun games like, visual novels or puzzle games or character driven themes, including, novelization type games with, sexy characters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But also really great action games as well. It just became a really nice little niche device, and people fell in love with it.
Tokiden, like Tokiden, Soul Sacrifice, Gravity Rush in particular.
Oh,
you ever played Gravity Rush? The first one?
I did, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I love that game. That game was amazing.
But now we're getting totally sidetracked, so I
Yes.
apologize. So yeah, so Monster Hunter started with what we call it the console team, but it's just the Monster Hunter team, right? And they're making it. Then they ask Ichinose, this other director, and says, "Hey, can you port this to the PlayStation Portable?" He does that, and that becomes the Monster Hunter G version, so it becomes Monster Hunter Portable. So I want to make a distinction here because people fight about this all the time on Twitter, and it's dumb. About this, is it a main game or is it a spin-off game?
Yeah.
It's so annoying because Capcom has their own specific terminology for it, and it doesn't match what anybody uses, and nor does it actually matter, which is the other thing that bothers me. But so that from there was born the Portable series, right? Because Monster Hunter to them was always a console experience. They had their team, and they would make what they call in Japan the numbered titles, right? Like the big generational jump titles, right? So after they did Monster Hunter Portable, the other team was working on Monster Hunter DOS for PlayStation 2. So that was the next, major release for the series. And then, Portable teams started working on Monster Hunter Portable second. And then they made Monster Hunter Portable second G and stuff. And they got in this route where they sort of took turns, right? So you had like your main numbered titles coming out on the consoles, selling like 800,000, 700,000 maybe. Then you'd have like the Monster Hunter Portable games coming out, hit 1 million, and then around the second generation, it started to change in a way that Monster Hunter DOS and the second Monster Hunter Portable game are not the same game. Like, they did not just take the same game and port it over to the PlayStation Portable. They took a lot of the elements, like the new weapons, a lot of the new maps and everything, but stuff like the villages and the story, even like the flagship monsters are different in the portable games. Like, they became their own thing, and that's where Ichinose was saying, like, they were still on the same floor at that point for second gen, where his team was developing Portable second alongside the team that was making Monster Hunter DOS. So they were able to share a lot of stuff and work on stuff. It was still a very small team. I think he said there was like 30 or 40 of them on there. So obviously getting bigger in scope, but they were able to do more original stuff. And it just became kind of like an unspoken thing that, the main numbered titles would try to make major advancements in the formula, and the portable games would master it, so to say, and it would also try new stuff, almost like a good test bed. And so Ichinose way back then said that, he wanted the portable series to have its own distinct feel. So he wanted to lay into the animals and really flesh that out and make that a focus point, which is why stuff like the Feline Kitchen was introduced in the portable games. Palicos were introduced in the portable games. Felines were introduced. Prowlers were introduced. Everything. Palamutes, like all the animal-based stuff is all portable series focused stuff.
So when people like that, there is this like notion online and in the community sometimes, particularly from people that started more recently, not necessarily like saying it's a bad thing that people started recently. Start whenever you had to start. Like, so long as you are enjoying yourself, that's what matters. Doesn't matter if you're a fifth fleeter, second fleeter, first fleeter, whatever. So long as you're enjoying Monster Hunter, that's all that matters. Don't think about like, oh, I've been hunting since the days of Monster Hunter 1. Oh, you younglings have no idea. Back in my day, it's like that.
If you're already playing your second game, you're a veteran already.
Yeah, it's whatever.
It doesn't.
There is this notion online that it's like, okay, so there's the main team that does the good games, and then there's the team that does the spin-offs, and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to explore this today in the podcast, is because as you can see, it's like it's not as simple as that. It's more like each team is servicing a different type of audience, and sometimes those audiences happen to overlap. So like, for instance, in the case of me and Gaijin, we'll play Monster Hunter games whether they're portable, whether they are in a mainline console, whatever. And maybe for some people, they're now beginning to learn that maybe that's not the case, because, a lot of people played Rise and they complained about it and they're like, oh, World was much better. It's like, it's not that World was this so much better thing. It's more like you just happen to like that main console experience better. So you will be better served by the team that does like the big console series, and maybe the more experimental portable stuff is not something that you're into as much. That's
I
just
also
like
think that people need to try out console games on portable machines and portable games on console machines, because I think it's not intuitive as people think. Like people think like, oh, it's just a game, like just put it on a portable and you're all good. No, it's actually it's really it's very nuanced. Like you take a game that was designed for longer play sessions, for larger screens, for online activity and stuff like that, and you put all the little minute game decisions like how big are we going to make the town, how many options are there in the menus, what is the structure of the grind. There's a lot of really small things that go into that. If I had Monster Hunter World on a portable machine, I probably wouldn't be playing it so much because it's not made for the portable experience. And I think people playing Monster Hunter Rise on PC probably feel it like it's not a sit-at-home PC console game. You're playing a portable game on a PC, which of course has the benefit of running really well because it was designed for a lower-end machine, so it runs fantastic. But it's just there's game design decisions that really influence that. I know people are like, oh, that's an excuse. It's just Nintendo money. I'm like, no, it's actually like that.
It's interesting, though, because the Switch does kind of like straddle that line where it's like, well, but is the Switch a home console? Is it a portable console? So what ends up happening is a lot of people, they just play their Switch docked all the time. They don't really play it like out of the dock, which basically means that, like, look, the game was designed to work in both situations. It's like if you want to sit in the dock, but obviously some concessions were made to be optimized for portable play sessions.
Portable, yeah.
Which is why I think these are some of the fastest hunts that we've seen in the game in terms of like just even time.
Yeah, like we'll get to Rise, time. But I mean that started with Tsujimoto-san going to Ichinose-san saying. Yeah. Right when they started the development of Monster Hunter World, he went to them and they started working on Rise. That's how long it was in the making. And he said, I want a extremely portable Monster Hunter game. I want you to, that's the key word, make it portable. Like, you can ignore what we're doing on World. Let's make a really great portable game. And that was the goal. So, I mean, they chose a direction and they committed to it. And, size of the UI, everything, the speed, the easy in and out, the warp travel stuff, like there's a lot of really good decisions that went into that maybe make the games feel a little simplistic, so to say, for a sit at home, long play session thing. But hey, that's another topic. But I mean, so sorry, I'll get us back on track. So you've got two major teams, so to say. But again, team is so weird because the Monster Hunter teams are all the same members, right?
You think of it like, for instance, when you used to do schoolwork and you would have like different groups. It's not like, oh, this group is set in stone and we're the group that's going to work on this forever. It's more like, okay, for this session, here's the groups. You're grouped up with these, and it's kind of, I feel it's more like that.
You shuffle it.
So you just like, you look at you have this one big team and you look at it and you're like, okay, it's almost like you're picking a soccer team, right?
Yeah.
Like the
who's on this one? Like, who's on that one?
I want you for my team. I want you because you know better about like this interface thing. You know better about the portable experience. You know better about the console experience. It's just kind of like shuffle people around.
So there's like no animosity between the teams because to them they're all probably the same team. They're just working on both or different titles. It's not a big deal. And then there's the Frontier team, which I won't talk about, but that was its own team as well in a physically different location even. I guess we'll touch on that a little bit later. But so, second generation is when things started changing for the signs were starting to show, right? That's when it hit off in Japan and started becoming like a social phenomenon out here. Every celebrity, every comedian, everybody was talking about it, playing it. All the kids were playing it at school. Like you couldn't go anywhere without it. Like it was just a cultural boom. And that's what Monster Hunter Portable Second did, which was called Freedom
Unite
in the West.
No, it was
Freedom Unite was Second G. Like the names are all
G.
weird.
Yeah.
But Portable Second G is when it really took off in Japan, and it solidified the series as like a portable series.
That is also when it was also when it took off in the West as well. I mean, I say took off.
Yeah, that's the first bump.
That was the first bump in the West. Was Freedom Unite.
Yeah, so they hit on something in that game, right? It was really perfected the formula. I mean, hitboxes aside, and the fact that you didn't have a second analog stick, but it was like that game was jam packed full of content. That's when they introduced the felines, that would hunt with you. They didn't have that before. And it had a lot of social features like, the guild cards and all these things that you can share. They had data download so that the loading was fast in between zones. And the game had tons of, it reminds me of actually Elden Ring in a way that the game had tons of like really obscure unlockable quests. And it's like one of those things where it drives the community to just start sharing all their discoveries and things that they found out. And, there was just a huge amount of community. And it was just the right time. And it was PSP at its peak. It was perfect.
And I feel that is one thing that is usually, at least in my experience, it seems like there's a lot of Japanese games that benefit from that community effect of people just coming together to try and figure stuff out. Like, obviously you had that in the Souls franchise, and you had that a lot in the Monster Hunter franchise, with you obviously being one of the driving figures of the whole thing, like the friggin' OG with, here's like all of the movesets for a weapon, like with the weapon guides back in the day, dude.
Oh man, I was right. I'm just lucky, right time, right place. But then third generation came, and for some reason they were still stubborn, right? They're like, we've got our portable team making the portable series, we've got the other team making the numbered titles on the consoles, and just so people know that Capcom in their own IR reports, you can go back and look at them. I'm not lying. I don't like I've checked my shit, so don't like. They refer to G releases or the ultimate releases as spin-off titles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in their IR report. So don't come at me with what you think a spin-off means. Like, when they say mainline series, they mean that it takes place in the main universe of Monster Hunter. So the portable series and the console series are all mainline games. Now, whether they are a numbered release or they are a spin-off depends. Like, if it says Monster Hunter, or Monster Hunter Dose, or Monster Hunter Tri, Monster Hunter 4, Monster Hunter World, those were main's a bad word. Those were numbered releases, right?
Yeah.
So generational releases. All the G-Rank expansions for those, or the Ultimate Editions, are all spin-offs. They're spin-off expansions. And all the portable series are their own unique theme, but also take in tons of inspiration from what the numbered titles are doing during that generation. So they're considered spin-off releases inside the mainline series. Where Monster Hunter Stories is not a mainline game. So it takes place in a different universe where it has different lore, different rules that it goes by, even though it's very similar. It's not the mainline games. So, the whole idea of having Kokoto Village or Poke Village and all that kind of stuff, like the main continent, the old continent, new world, like that's all a mainline series thing. And there's certain things, there's pillars that they won't break for mainline series games. Frontier is also a spin-off. But it's also not a mainline game either. So they were given the freedom to do what they wanted to do. Where mainline, they have certain consistencies that they push for, right? To make sure that they're not breaking those boundaries. But yeah, so you had the portable team, you had the other team going, and then things got really weird when they got tangled in the end of third generation. So Monster Hunter Tri was announced for PS3, as I said. They canned it and moved it to the Wii. At the same time, the portable series team was making Monster Hunter Portable Third, right? And
yeah,
it's interesting because so you have, I believe what came out first was Monster Hunter Tri, and they actually removed like half the weapons in the game, which was just like
that was so bad. Like when I went to try. And because like I went to try first, it didn't click, and then I went to Freedom Unite, and there I played with the gun lance, and then I was like, okay, now I understand how the game works. Let's go back to try, and I go to try, and it's like, there's no gun lance. What? What the hell's going on?
Yeah. So Portable Third, when it came out, they actually said that they were hoping to add a new weapon in it, but when they realized that fans were really upset about the idea of certain weapons being removed, they actually decided to scrap that idea and just make sure that they included all the weapons in the game, and they gave every single weapon a new mechanic, all of them. So they did a lot of brushing up and improvement on the weapons, and those stuck with the series ever going forward. So Portable Third never got released outside of Japan, which is a bloody shame because it was a great game.
Yeah.
But that had its own village, it had its own story, it had its own elder, like the whole Yukumo village and all that kind of stuff, Zenogre, and it was very Asian in design and aesthetic with the hot spring resorts and all that kind of stuff. And that thing broke every record here in Japan. It sold like 4.9 million copies as a portable game in Japan, which is crazy. Like that was just perfect.
4 million?
4.9 million, yeah, I believe.
Almost 5 million copies in a single region. That's ridiculous, dude.
Yeah.
What the?
So
because
the thing is,
and here's the thing, because a lot of people might even think nowadays 4.9 doesn't sound like that much. You understand? This was back then. This is back then. 4.9. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's friggin' wild.
So
Jesus.
when 3 Ultimate, so it's interesting because I couldn't believe it when I read it in interviews, but so they were making a portable version of Monster Hunter Tri for the 3DS, and it was going to be called something ridiculous. They said even the logo half a year before release was still like Monster Hunter Tri 3D or something. I can't remember what the title was. I had it in my video, but the thing is they started with the idea of just porting it, which is funny because you had the Portable Series team was called the Portable Series team because the numbered titles were console games, right? But now the console game team, so to say, started making games for portable machines as well, so they couldn't keep calling the portable games portable because then it would make no sense, right?
And then there was also the fact that they ported Portable Third to the PlayStation 3.
I know, it's so funny, right? So everything got tangled up here, right? So you had the Tri team looked at what they did in Portable Third, took all of that and put it into their game, which was a smart move. And then they said, you know what? We have so much new content here that we've been making, plus all the Portable Third enhancements. This should be its own title. This should be an Ultimate release. This should be a G-Rank release. So half a year before it's released, they changed the name. And people think that sounds crazy, but half a year before you finish developing a game is when things really start to come together. You don't even get first fully playable feature complete games until 9 months out from release, if not closer. Games are weird. Game development, if you've done it, you know that things start out very separate and then they all come together at the very end, and then fine tuning goes crazy and the progress just goes ridiculous. But so they say we're going to take a few more months for polish. You're oh, okay, they're feature locked down and they're polishing it, so that there's going to be some really good changes being made. But I digress. So they released Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate on the 3DS. I believe that this stunted and threw off the portable team because they couldn't just go make a G-Rank release for Monster Hunter Portable 3rd G, because now just half a year later or something, or a year later, right afterwards, you've got now 3 Ultimate on the 3DS. So it was a conflict, right? So the Portable Series team actually did not add a G-Rank or Master Rank to Monster Hunter Portable 3rd. It's a high rank only game, which is fascinating because it's also the best-selling, up until now, it was the best-selling Monster Hunter game in Japan.
And best-selling base game, right? I would imagine.
Or of any game.
No, because World sold more than that, of course. Yeah.
I was going to say, until recently, yeah.
Yeah.
It was the best-selling. No, World did not sell 4.9 million in Japan. For Japan sales.
Oh, for Japan sales.
Still
Okay, yeah.
But so they got in a situation there where they changed over to 3DS, and that was a good move because 3DS games were all selling about, I'd say 4.2 million or so, 4 million or so for each release, and that's just the base. So Monster Hunter 4, when it came out for 3DS, that was the main series team, if you want to call them that. I mean, it's not really. It was not Ichinose-san's team. It was, as director, it was the numbered title, so Fujioka and stuff like that. So they released 3 or was it 4 on the 3DS, and it takes that solidifies it as a portable series, right? It's just selling so well here. The Wii U was a flop. PlayStation, they never had big sales on the consoles. They never really got over 1 million here anyways on those. So they move over to portable. So they make 4 and 4G. They both sell like 4 million each. So you're talking 8 million total. And that's when they really started putting in marketing power in the West, was around 4 Ultimate. And that's when, because 3 Ultimate actually did pretty darn good in the West, to the point that the people at Capcom pled their case and they got an investment towards the Western audience for 4 Ultimate. They decided not to release 4 and just wait for 4 Ultimate. And 4 Ultimate was the first title in the West that sold 1 million copies. 1 million. Yeah. I know, it's funny, right? We're talking about World selling like 10 million, 12 million, whatever in the West. It broke 1 million, and that was a record.
For Ultimate was also when a lot of people that maybe hadn't tried, like in terms of content creators and stuff, I think for Ultimate was when a lot of people that hadn't played Monster Hunter, they started giving it a shot. You start seeing more reviewers saying, oh, this is a great entry point to the series. And it was. For Ultimate was an amazing entry. It still is, in a lot of ways, an amazing entry point to the series. Yeah. It's just, obviously, there's more friendly ones now with World and Rise.
Yeah, and I have my own personal take and guess on why it saw success in the West, besides just being an awesome game, is that to me, it felt like it was more action-oriented than any other of the Monster Hunter games that I had played before, because you had verticality added. Like, it wasn't just a flat terrain and shooting and hitting and pausing. Like, you had lots of dynamic action going on, so it felt more like an action game than before, and I think... Yeah. That pace was really good for the West. Where gamers
for those of you that don't follow Monster Hunter, 4 was the last time that they introduced 2 new weapons and a brand new mechanic. So 4 was when they came up with the Insect Glaive and Charge Blade, and also when we first got the first mounting. First mounting mechanics ever, which was very different.
Attacking in the air, off of cliffs, off of ledges, like that's all new. Up until then, if you took like a bow gun, it was only ever a flat terrain. So no matter where you shot, if you just target the monster, you were going to hit it. You didn't have to worry about like slopes or anything. It was all literally flat. It's kind of crazy when you think about that. And it's a huge jump and change in the game design and the monster design. So that did really good. And then so you're probably wondering, okay, what happened with the portable team? Well, they came back for for the 10th anniversary, I think it was.
Yeah,
they wanted to do an anniversary title, so they went way out and created Monster Hunter Generations, which is a really good title. It's called Monster Hunter Cross in Japan because of the concept. I love both names, but the idea was, hey, up until now, let's do a celebration of all 4 generations of Monster Hunter. Let's include all the villages from the past games, including Monster Hunter Portable 3rd. Let's create a new village for this game, for the 4th generation, and let's try some crazy new stuff. And so what they tried was, let's double down on the action, so let's add in hunting arts that you can customize, and let's add in hunting styles so that there's more than just one kind of like normal way to play each weapon. There's different approaches so people can figure out how they want to play a weapon, because I thought that was a smart move.
I think that Generations like really drives home the point that you're saying about like how the portable team kind of like takes the ideas of the numbered titles and they just like ride with those and they just completely do experimental stuff. I feel like Generations is the most experimental that Monster Hunter's ever been, even more so than Rise, I feel.
Yeah, and I think it helped pave the way for a lot of the quality of life changes in World. Because a lot of those were first floated with Prowler mode. And people were like, wait, you don't need hot drinks or cold drinks? What? You don't need to worry about stamina when you're running as long as you're not in a fight?
Pickaxes, bug nets,
you don't need any of that? What, you could tell where the monster is? Like, all these things were floated, and it didn't break the game. It actually, for a lot of people, myself included, made it more fun. But, so, I mean, you want to talk about the focus on animals, right? So the Prowler mode was introduced as... and I don't think we'll ever see it again because I think it was a defining feature of that game. I just don't. I mean, every game has its own DNA, right? Like underwater was on one game, jumping was on the other one, the frenzy, and then Prowlers were on Generations.
What if next week the new director?
I would be so happy to eat those words.
Prowler mode.
I would be so happy to eat my words on that one because Prowler's my favorite weapon.
Yeah,
honestly. I think I've played Prowler more than almost any other weapon. Maybe Insect Glaive is close, but I love Prowler. So that was Generations, and at the same time they were starting to work on Monster Hunter World.
Yeah.
And so to fill the gap, I think they never said this officially. They would never say it officially, but I think it's pretty obvious from the game design that they weren't planning on Generations on being to get its own sort of ultimate release, but it did. So they made Monster Hunter Double Cross or Generations
the irony.
Ultimate. Well, it makes me really happy that Capcom saw so much success with 4 Ultimate that they decided to localize Monster Hunter Generations, the base game, because it was at such a weird transition time in the West for World that the West didn't get Generations Ultimate until much later than Japan, because it was like just not going to come out, because you had the whole World engine starting up, the whole PR thing, and that was a much more better game to get out to the masses in the West. Mm-hmm. So I don't know whether the West would ever have gotten Generations or Generations Ultimate if they didn't just say, no, we're going to be first-class citizens. The West is going to get this game in the West.
In a way, I think that it was actually a smarter marketing move from them to have Generations Ultimate after World, because now you have a much bigger base of people that can potentially look at that and it's like, oh yeah, sure, I'll check out that older Monster Hunter game, whatever, and just, see what that's all about. I think that was actually a good move on them to wait, even though it pissed me off and I made videos about it and I was like, oh man. But it was ultimately a good move because they probably
want to talk about
a lot more.
The difference between main team and team A and team B. I hate those. Yeah. I've even used those terms and I hate them. So I'm yelling at myself here as well. One is not better than the other. They're both superb teams.
Yep.
But you've got the team numbered and team portable, I guess. Team Ichinose. And they all love each other. But the thing is like the director of the ultimate releases is generally a different director than the base game, because one, the original director deserves a damn break. I mean, they've been working their butts off for years on their game. Two, it's a way to get other developers experience in the directorial seat, right? Try to raise talent and stuff like that, which is really important. The director of Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate is the director for Iceborne. Ichihara. Like, that was his debut title. So, like, they picked him up. So, yeah, it's not two completely separate teams, so to say. So then World comes out on console. They go back to console, and they break every damn record the company's ever had. And it becomes a phenomenon everywhere in the world, especially in the West. Then Iceborne, of course, gets added to that. And then, at the same time, they asked Ichinose-san, hey, we want a portable series game. And they've moved away from using numbers in their releases, they said. They won't do that going forward. So it wasn't Monster Hunter Portable 5th, which is technically which it would have been.
Yeah.
But it was Monster Hunter Rise. And now we're getting the G-Rank, or I call it G-Rank still, even though that's not what it's called anymore. It is Master Rank. Confirmed.
I mean,
because Capcom made a funny little boo-boo, and they accidentally the Palico hit the keyboard, and they actually had today we have released a new expansion, Sunbreak, and it includes Master Rank with a higher difficulty. I'm like, okay, that was funny. So yeah, Master Rank releases, which is much more than just a remastered expansion. It's a full-on, build on the base game and make it complete. It's an expansion, but in the past, they didn't have the ability to sell DLC as an expansion, so it was always considered like a follow-up release in which it carried over your save data, which is just an old-fashioned ass way of saying it's an expansion.
It's an expansion.
And if you didn't have the base game, and if you just buy the expansion, you can buy so that you get the base game and the expansion. It's just a bundled thing on disc.
But at this point, I'm hoping that people have a better understanding of when when people talk about the mainline series, the side series, the spin-offs, the
Team A,
all of this.
Team B.
It's like, look, it's just one big team, and then they just kind of like segregate. And some people are going to work on this title. Probably a lot of the people that worked on World might have worked on some Rise functionality. People that worked on 4U might. Who knows, right? But ultimately, it's one big team. They just kind of work on
portable
these
series,
different things. There's the portable
series.
These
are all mainline titles.
There's the numbered series, whatever, right?
Everything else, I mean, outside of 5 games, everything's a spin-off. Yeah. Whether it's a spin-off inside the mainline series or the non-mainline series, it depends on the title. But, I mean, that's not to say that the same members aren't also working on the non-mainline ones. Like, there's plenty of devs from the teams that had their expertise, composers and stuff, and as well that worked on stories, and Stories 2, which were fantastic games. And that's not mainline, that's separate, but I don't think it matters, and I don't think Capcom cares about it. I don't think we should either. I really don't think so.
But ultimately,
Spin-off's got this really weird, dirty name. I don't know why in the West.
Hopefully people have a better understanding of how that stuff works, and so that people understand why I talk about the next Monster Hunter after Sunbreak as being Monster Hunter 6.
6, yeah.
Because there's still a lot of people out there that come to some of my videos where I talk about this, and they're like, no, Rise is Monster Hunter 6, and it's like, no.
Okay, well, here
it's kind of like Portable 5th.
Most of you guys probably know this, but I will tell you right now, there is a very deliberate design choice they make when they want to denote a numbered title, a generational title, which is the number of dragon heads in the logo. This is official. So Monster Hunter, obviously, there's only one. It's the Rathian. She's up on top of the logo. That's not Rathalos. I know a lot of people think it is. It's Rathian, fun thing there. Monster Hunter DOS has 2 dragon heads, very visible in the emblem behind the logo. Monster Hunter Tri has 3 dragon heads coming off like serpents. Monster Hunter 4 had 4 dragon heads, 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom. Monster Hunter World has 5. Look for it. There's 5 dragon heads.
How many dragon heads in Generations? That's the important one.
None. It doesn't even matter. There's 4 main monsters. I guess in a way they're capturing the essence of the 4th gen.
How many dragon heads in Rise? I haven't actually, I'm not paying
2?
attention to those.
I think we got Ibushi and Narwa. So was it 2nd gen game then? I love the fact that they also play off the generational words, like 50 years ago, and the next one it'll be like 60 years ago. They play off the numbers quite a bit, which is really funny. But yeah, it doesn't
hopefully
matter,
hopefully that clears out a lot of things. And now another thing that we want to talk about as well is naturally what should you expect from a G-Rank expansion?
I guess we'll call it. We should probably start.
Yeah, Master Rank.
To call it Master Rank.
It's
a bad habit I do as well.
No, but it's like the thing is, the reason I say I like G Rank more than Master Rank. it just sounds better.
Same here.
But it's like, guys, G Rank, Master Rank, Ultimate Edition. These are literally all the same thing. If somebody says G Rank, they're talking about the Ultimate version or the Master Rank version, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so it doesn't really matter that much. But we're going to be talking about what you guys can kind of expect, because that is going to be something that is going to be coming up next week. We're not going to be doing predictions because we are so close that these predictions are going to be invalidated within the next 4 days. So it'd be pretty. Oh yeah, let me make a prediction for the next 4 days. Forget about that. We're going to be talking.
People always ask me, they're like, "What do you want to see most?" And I'm like, "What I'm not expecting."
Yeah, we want surprises.
So the thing that I can't tell you is what I'm hoping for most. If it's completely predictable, that would be disappointing.
I mean, the one point that people might have with that is returning monsters. We'll talk a little bit about that, but I feel like we've talked about that so many times. But let's start by talking about G-Rank expansions. So as we went down the road, we already talked about how Monster Hunter 1 had Monster Hunter G-Rank. There wasn't really end game systems being added to those games at the time. It's just more monsters, harder monsters, pretty much, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to call it an end game, there was, I guess, some optional monsters that you could unlock if you kept playing, I think, and you hit a certain hunter rank or whatever. But that's not really, it's not a loop. That's just some extra content after credits roll. So I guess it's just called post game at that point. It's not really an end game loop. Not in the degree of what we modernly call an end game system, which is an actual gameplay loop that keeps you busy for a while.
So it's like the loop back. The loop back in Monster Hunter G was you just hey, I like this weapon. I'm gonna make a set around this weapon. That was kind of like your loop. You hunt the monsters, you make the set, then you hunt more monsters, then you make another set, and
then you fall in love with the monster, and you say, you know what, I want to hunt 100 of them on my guild card because I love the monster, and I'm gonna hunt 100, and then you go in and go, I can hunt 200, and before you know it, you're hooked. That's what you're just hunting it because it's fun and because you're getting better every time. And Monster Hunter is just designed in such a way that you can feel the progress every time you do it. It's really cool.
So in DOS, I don't really remember, but that one didn't have a Master Rank expansion, right? G-Rank
No,
Ultimate
it
version?
didn't.
No.
It didn't, no. But Portable Second did, because I think it sold so damn well that they only had 1 year, and they made...
That was Freedom.
They made the entire
Unite.
expansion in 1 year, which is insane if you think about it.
So that was Freedom Unite. And do you have any idea on like how many more monsters we got in Freedom Unite? Because I know it'd probably be a lot, but I don't know the actual specifics at this point.
A lot. I'm gonna guess it's probably, because the thing is like, the problem is that in general, base games don't have subspecies. This is a design choice from the teams for both any of the mainline games. So in general, I mean, there are some exceptions, but in general, like the subspecies is what they introduce in the ultimate release, like the master rank. So generally they'll make subspecies out of all the main new monsters that appeared in that game. So let's say, let's say Monster Hunter Tri had Barryoth, was his first time in there, right? So they had the Sand Barryoth in 3 Ultimate. And stuff like that. It's not always the case, but it's the general rule. So just adding in subspecies means they'll have the same amount of new monsters as the base game, and then they add in, of course, returning monsters. They always add in like a half dozen or more of those. Then they'll often add in their subspecies for the hell of it as well, and then they have unique online boss, so to say, like the Gathering Hub new boss monster, and then you'll have like a new story boss monster and stuff like that. So yeah, I would expect a good additional 2 or 3 dozen monsters.
Yeah,
a lot.
a lot of monsters. Then so with after Freedom Unite, we go to 3 and to 3 Ultimate. So that was huge in terms of monsters that you got with 3 Ultimate, because like Tri had 18 monsters if I remember correctly, because I looked it up at one point. Because so
I have a list here that I made. So I did not triple check this, but I was actually curious how many new monsters they introduced in each game, and I'll tell you. So okay. Monster Hunter 1, guess how many monsters that thing had?
Monster Hunter 1?
Again, if I'm off by like 1 or 2, I apologize, but I wrote all these down. So
I'm going to risk 12.
17.
Wow.
17 monsters are the OGs.
Okay.
Gendrome, Velocidrome, Eodrome, Gypsaros, Yankuku, Cephadrome, Plesioth, Rathalos, Rathian, Basarios, Gravios, Kezu, Monoblos, Diablos, Kirin, Laoshan Long, and Fatalis.
I can't wait for you to read out the Generations Ultimate one.
Monster Hunter G introduced 14 new monsters.
Oh, wow.
And again, I'm counting subspecies new monsters. So, you got the blue Yankuku, the purple Gypsaros, the azure Rathalos, the pink Rathian, gold Rathian, silver Rathalos, red Kezu, black Gravios, white Monoblos, black Diablo. Right now, these are just subspecies or rare species of the base game. Green Plesioth, ashen Lao Shalong, and crimson Fatalis. So there was actually no new monsters outside of subspecies or rare species that I see in here. Monster Hunter Dose added in a roster of 13 new monsters, which was crazy.
Wait. But how much did they have total on Dose?
I don't know. I didn't.
This is just how much.
I didn't necessarily care about the monster count as much as how many new monsters were introduced. So Dose introduced 13 new ones. I may as well say who they are because people might find it interesting, right? So Bulldrome, Kongalala, Dodo Blanga, good old grandpa with his left hook, Rajang, Daimyo Hermitor, Shogun Senator, Shen Gaoren, Kushala Daora, Chameleos, Teostra, Lunastra, Yamatsukami, and White Fatalis.
So Yamatsukami was introduced in Dose. So many people ask about Yamatsukami
Elder Dragons
to be brought back.
That was such a dumb hunt, though. It was a cool monster, but it was a really boring. I actually went back to play Portable Second Ultimate just to try it. That's not a fun fight. It's a cool looking monster, but that's a dumb fight. I would not want to see it.
I mean, if you think about it, Fatalis was not the most engaging.
Yeah, it's a dumb fight. I never liked it.
And now you look at Fatalis and World, and it's like, ooh. So who knows?
If they
who knows what they could do with Yamatsukami, right?
Actually, you know what? I'm going to lie. If there's one thing I do want to see them do in Sunbreak is I want to see them do it doesn't have to be the monster I want it to be. It could be any other one. I want them to take an Elder Dragon or some big monster and reimagine the fight like they did with Fatalis or Alatreon. Because those were the 2 best fights in the entire series, in my opinion. Like, I love them to death. So I would love them to take something like Amatsu and completely rework that fight. That would be amazing.
I don't know, dude. It's like as a Gunlance user, whenever you give me those floating monsters, man, I'm just like, I don't know about that.
So Monster Hunter Portable second actually I only have a list here of 3 new monsters for that game. That's it. Geodrome, Tigrex, and a Cantor.
Hey, Tigrex though. Tigrex, big deal. Big deal.
Monster Hunter Portable Freedom Unite had 10 new monsters. They had Nargacuga, which is hilarious if you think about it. Nargacuga is the exact same skeleton as Tigrex. It's amazing how different they make them feel in the game. Yeah. When they are just a variation off the same model. It's amazing. Vespoid Queen, that's a rare one you don't hear often.
Damn.
The King Shakalaka.
Dude, King Shakalakas were amazing, dude.
Wait. So
Shakalaka was introduced when?
King Shakalaka was in Monster Hunter 2nd G, so Freedom Unite.
Huh.
Then you had the first time, and I don't think the last time we'll see it, a Monster Hunter Freedom Monster was added, which was Hypnotrice.
Oh.
So that's the bird that makes you go sleepy sleep. Lavasioth.
We haven't seen that one since, right? Hypno?
Nope.
What? Yeah.
Yeah. Then you had Lavasioth, Ukanlos, the Plum Daimyo Hermitor, the Terra Shogun Senator, the Emerald Kangalala, and the Copper Blogonga.
I've been told, and I never really fact checked this, but several people have told me that Lavasioth actually came from Frontier, so it was originally developed.
Okay, maybe that's possible as well. Yeah, for sure. I could be wrong. Yeah, that could be the one or second one. Then Tri had 15 new monsters, so that was a big jump for generation. You see a thing here. The generation ones have.
And Tri had friggin' Logi.
So get ready for some nostalgia in here. We got Great Jaggy, Rip, Kuropeko. Oh, I love Kuropeko. World Ludroth, Bararoth, Gobble, Great Baggy, Lagiacrus.
Wait. Baroth was introduced with Tri?
Yeah, the good old freight train. Charging with his head. Yeah, Great Baggy, Lagiacrus, Giganox, Barioth, Uragan, Agnactor, Sadus or Cadus, whatever it is, Jen Moran, Double Joe, and Alatreon.
And DJ. Wow.
Yeah,
dude, it's like, listen, that was a small roster because like the reason I always know that there's 18 monsters in Tri is because there were so many arguments of people saying that Rise had the least content of any base game, and I was like,
oh Jesus,
sir,
no, not even close.
Sir, sit down, please. Yep. Please sit down. You have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. And Monster Hunter Portable third. I think if you played Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, when you go to play Monster Portable third, it feels very much like the same game, just a different village. It's really interesting, actually, because it's third generation, right? So it's got a lot of the same monsters. So a lot of the interesting subspecies were added in Portable third. That's where you got the Glacier Agnactor, the Brute Tigrex, the Great Roggy, Lagombi, Nibblesnarf. I love Nibblesnarf. Duramboros, God, I love Duramboros. I want to see him back one day.
Helicopter.
Volvidon, Zenogre, Arzuros, Crimson Kuropeko, Jade Bararoth, Purple Ludroth, Green Nargacuga, which I don't even remember how the heck it's different from the regular Nargacuga, the Sand Barioth, the Baleful Giganox, Steel Uragan, and Amatsu, or Amatsumagutsuchi.
So its original Giganox was introduced in Tri as well, right?
Yeah.
Alien bastard. Mm-hmm. Like a little alien creature.
Or whatever. Weird thingy. I may as well continue here. So yeah, Monster Hunter 4 had 15 new monsters. So generally, like you're seeing a thing here, like each generational release gets about 2 dozen.
Yeah.
Like 12.5 new monsters. So 4 had 15.
Like,
you had
as we get to 4, because like you told me earlier that like up until this point, guys, none of the Monster Hunter games had what you would call like a traditional endgame loop. Right? It's like the endgame loop is just like you go hunt, you make your armor sets, and you unlock a new monster every now and then. Like that's it. That's your
basically Fatalis, right?
Yeah.
Like you unlock the final Elder Dragon and that's it. Just have fun playing the game. And
in 4, well not 4, but 4 Ultimate, you actually start. 4 had it as well? Okay.
Yeah.
And in
yeah,
4, you actually start
it.
having an endgame system added on top of it as well.
Yeah, so 4 started it with, and it's interesting because 4 and 4 Ultimate had multiple endgame systems, and I think that was the recipe for its success, for longevity, because you didn't have to engage in just one system. You can just do all of them or some of them. So 4 introduced the idea of guild quests, which were random quests that you would get. It would have a random pairing of monsters with a randomized instanced dungeon in the Elderwood, I think it was called, or the Everwood. And then you would, as you complete that quest, it would level up. And then at certain level tiers, like if you're the host and your quest got to level 30 or whatever it was, a certain threshold, then the rewards would start changing. You'd be put into the next tier list, and now it's technically a high rank quest. And then, once you got it up to a certain level, it became even harder than the highest high rank quest for the base game. It was like stupidly hard. But it also gave you the best ability to get relic weapons, which was the end game, and I did not engage with the relic weapons at all at that point. But relic weapons were, it was a randomized table of weapon, ability, element kind of thing, and you'd have some combinations that were just so stupidly powerful that it shamed anything that the game itself had. And unfortunately, what ended up happening with that, though, it was a really great concept, but what everybody ended up doing was just hunting a crap ton of Shagaru and Rajang, because those were the 2 monsters that would give you the highest tier weapons, and what you got was random. So to me, it felt dirty. Like I'm aiming for a crazy water weapon. Why am I going to get that from a Rajang? That's stupid.
So it's like it. In a way, that particular endgame system reminds me a lot of Call of Taroth, which is just like you get random weapons.
And Safajiva and all that.
But in a way, it was actually better than Call of Taroth, because at least you could fight like different monsters. And even though, sure, Shigaru and Rajang gave you the best ones, was there a chance of you getting it with like a different monster? So like, say if I was just fighting like a regular Gore, could I still potentially get the best possible weapon? No. You needed to fight. Okay, so that is definitely a problem. But at least there was 2 monsters instead of 1. There's 2 monsters instead of 1. Still better.
Yeah. I still think that whole system was born because of Dragon Quest IX, is my opinion. Because Dragon Quest IX, I think it was DS, right? I think.
I have no idea.
That game had a thing in Japan where you would get randomized dungeons with like legendary treasure chests and stuff. And you would share them by passing random people on the street. It was the street pass thing that they had, and there were some like legendary maps, 2 legendary maps here in Japan that became total. Like people took the bullet train from down south to come to Tokyo just to get someone to share them the map, and it was funny because there was a map called the Kawasaki Locker, because it was first shared by somebody at the locker area of Kawasaki Station. And it was like everything was perfect about this map. Like it had the right amount of levels, the right rarity loot boxes, and all the boxes were right there by the stairs, so you didn't have to fight anything. It was the perfect map. It was like all the random elements come together to make like the perfect treasure map. And so people would start sharing it, and they call it the Kawasaki Locker map. It was really funny. But I think that's where they said, because you would share these guild quests just by passing people on your commute, and you would be sharing them. So it was really funny. So
let me see if I get this right. So you would do a quest, and then that quest would generate another quest, and then that would generate another quest, and it just kept going up.
Yeah,
and
you
up
just
and up.
you just started. It was like it's the tempered system. You just started getting random quests against, and they had anywhere between 1 or 2 monsters. And then, the actual layout of each area in there was a little bit different. It's a little, I say randomized, but it's not completely randomly generated. Like it's not procedurally generated. It's a random one pulled from different choices of maps.
Okay. Yeah, but so that was like the actual first in-game. But see, this is where I have a little bit of a problem with that system, is that I don't like it when there's a system that makes the weapon tree obsolete.
And that's exactly what it did for Gunlance. Because shelling level 5, I want to say it was only available as a relic weapon in Guild Quests. And so it made every single other weapon completely pointless. I mean, one could argue at that point in the game, you've already exhausted the main quests and it didn't matter, but come on.
I don't like
yeah.
it. I
it's a
really
bad
don't
power
like
creep.
it when they do stuff like that. That's just like, oh, this invalidates the tree. It's just like, why? Why is there this giant weapon tree in the game, and then you just release something that literally invalidates it? Why? It's so weird.
So I mean, I didn't mind it being in the game because I don't care about in-game systems, and because I started 3rd generation, so 3 Ultimate didn't have an in-game outside just the traditional hunter rank unlocks or whatever, like just unlocking a monster, and you just hunt for fun, and that was good. So 4 had it. I didn't engage with it much because I don't like the idea of a random dropped weapon. I like the idea that I hunted this specific monster during that weekend to get this one. That damn orb didn't drop until the 50th one, but darn it, I did it, and I made the weapon, and I loved it. Like there's the memories, and it's tied. It's like, that one time I randomly, headlocked a Rajang, and I got a water weapon. Like that feels dirty to me. So like, if people want to do it, go for it. But for Ultimate is where I didn't say who the new monsters in 4 was. So Ruby Basarios, Gormagala, Kechawacha, Molten Tigrex. Oh, I love Molten Tigrex. I really want him back. Najarala, another one I love. Nursilla, Celtis Queen, Your Boy Tetsucabra, Zamtrios, Darren Moran, Dalamadur, Oroshikirin, Shagaru Magala, and Chaotic Gormagala. For You is when they introduced a second in-game system. And this one I actually really I liked, and a lot of people didn't.
Was it the Expeditions or whatever?
No. So they took the guild quests and they enhanced it, so now you can go to like above G rank, like the level 100 or whatever it was. Like Shagaru would one shot anybody in the game. It was quite intense. But of course you also had power creep. Like the prizes for those crazy hunts were ridiculous. But that's when they first introduced weapon honing for the first time. So they had the Apex system, which I consider an endgame mechanic because you only ever had to engage with an Apex monster like 2 or 3 times during the main story. That was it. So if you kill an Apex monster, which had the whole idea that you could only hit certain body parts when it was in an Apex mode, otherwise everything would bounce off it or just do no damage. And you would use a special whetstone, and for like the next 60 seconds, if you whack it, you can knock it out of its apex state, and then everyone just goes absolute ham on the monster until it goes apex again, and then everyone sharpens up and does it again. It was like walled off difficulty, so a lot of people were split on this one, but if you hunt an apex monster, there was 2 items you can get. You were guaranteed to get one of them, but there was like the apex orb, and then there was like the great apex orb, right? And you use those to hone a weapon. So you can choose to enhance its attack power by a little bit. You give it a defense boost, or make it so that when you hit a monster, you regain a little bit of life. And those were the 3 only honing options they had.
So
that's the series where they introduced that.
That's the augmentations in World, basically.
Yeah. Pretty much.
So that's where that came from.
To me, that's an in-game system. That's an in-game mechanic. Because you'd find your favorite weapon, like the Raging Brachydios Insect Glaive was so good, or all the Molten Tigrex weapons. Then you'd go and you hone them, and you'd make multiple versions. You're like, okay, now I need 2 because I want to have a heal one and I want to have an attack one,
So if you think about it, what you got with 4 Ultimate or 4G or whatever you want to call it, right? The master rank of 4, you got way more monsters, you got harder difficulties, and then on top of it,
much harder difficulty, yeah.
You also got the the system that already existed, which was the relic weapon system, and a brand new honing system with the Apex monsters. The Apex monsters also only came in 4U, right? Not in base 4? Okay. So you even got like a new monster, like denominator, subtype, I don't know, subtype, whatever you want to call it. With the Apex
like a
stuff.
Variation.
Yeah.
Which they carried on in Generations.
Yeah.
So then Generations comes out and has a whopping 18 new monsters, which is just ridiculous. So you had Nakarkos, Gameth, Mizutsune, Glavenus.
Dude, Nakarkos. Nakarkos, such a cool fight.
Yeah.
Sorry, keep going.
Malfestio, Astalos, and then all the deviants. So Red Helm, Arzuros, Stonefist, Hermitor, Hellblade, Glavenus, Snow Baron, Lagambi, Silverwind, Nargacuga, Dread King, Rathalos, Dread Queen, Rathian, Drill, Tusk, Tetsucabra, Grimclaw, Tigrex, Crystal Beard, Uragan, Deadeye, Yangaruga, and Thunder Lord Zinogre. So these are mostly variations.
Everybody loves Crystal Beard Uragan. I know this for a fact.
That was the one monster you could never find rooms for because no one was hunting anything.
I forced two of my friends to hunt that with me to make his weapon for some reason.
Oh my gosh!
And then I never used it.
Yeah, and then you never used it.
But so in Generations I have more experience because I did play a crap ton of GU. So the deviant system was interesting because these were actually monsters. They were not just like a subspecies. They had entirely different move sets to them, and damage modifiers and stuff like that. And they would they would just like
gear,
have
their own weapons,
different things about them that actually changed the monster physically that were really, really interesting. I felt like.
Oh yeah, they're very different fights, right? They feel very different. It's much more than just a monster on steroids.
The problem with that one was that the way that the ticket system for the deviants worked was so bad. It's like if you're playing solo, it's fine. If you're playing in a group, then everybody has to go. Basically, you have to do the grind however many times you have people in your group. If there's 2 people in your group, you have to do the grind twice. If
to make a full armor set, I timed it out. It generally took about 7 to 8 hours to make one armor set.
Jesus Christ. And that's like nonstop grinding. Yeah, per person.
That's nonstop.
Yeah.
Nonstop.
It's
and that's a combination of multiple monsters, capture quests, hunt quests. It's draining, right?
Yeah. It's like I feel like
the endgame system for that was interesting because I feel that it
was just the deviants.
The deviants I think was the endgame system, but I think they did a really good job in that the deviant weapons weren't completely busted. Like they did have the ability to charge up hunter arts faster, which was awesome, and they were really good. But there was other weapons that were just as good.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I really like about GU is that the endgame systems did not cannibalize the weapon tree. So even though, like a lot of times I would try to make my set around the deviant weapon, I would recognize that, okay, I can make the set around the deviant weapon, and it is might be slightly better in some situations, slightly worse in others, but there are other weapons in the tree that are comparable, and in a lot of situations even better. And that to me
even the
was
armor
cool.
didn't cannibalize it because the armor had 0 slots. So if you got really lucky and you got a talisman that had +3 of a deviant, then there was actually a possibility to do a slight mix set and still get the skill. But in most cases, you had to use the full set, which means
it's like if
you were going to embody that monster.
Yeah, if you wanted to have use a deviant armor set, you were using most likely the full set. For sure. I remember I used the Bloodbath Diablos for aerial slapstick gunlands, and it's like such a beast. And then I swapped the weapon for Chaotic Gore Magala because the Bloodbath Diablo set was like negative crit, and then I would have the Chaotic Gore Magala one at -40% affinity or something like that, and I'm like, that sounds like a great weapon. Let's go. So that was really fun. But see, guys, this is one of the things that I always bring up whenever I talk about I don't actually bring it up, but whenever you hear me talk about Fatalis and why I was upset about the Fatalis armor, this is why. Because I played GU potentially I could have played it for a longer time. I didn't play it because you had to kind of like do multiplayer because it's very hard to play solo for the average player, in my opinion. But it's like, I could see myself potentially playing a lot more hours of GU because of the fact that there wasn't an armor set that's like, this is the end all be all. It's like you had the John Cena set, which everybody called the Joe Sienna or whatever.
Yeah, but the defense was crap, and the dragon element was crap.
Yeah, and it had its downside. So it's something that a lot of people used, but it wasn't like the best thing ever.
You had to glam it because it looked like ass.
And it's like there were a lot of other sets that you could use that were still fun and provided with interesting playstyles, like Soul Serum Mizutsune, which gave you like the bubble thing. I had a friend of mine who was running Snow Baron Lagambi because it gave a lot of like aerial stuff and whatnot. So there were a lot of mixed sets and crazy things that you can do with Deviant Armors that felt better than just like, here's Fatalis armor. Just like forget everything else. This is the best. It works for everything. There it goes.
So Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate, they had 8 new monsters. So it was Atal Ka, love her to death.
Oh,
the original Silkbind user. Valstrax, Bloodbath Diablos, Bolt Reaver Astalos, Elder Frost Gammoth, Soulseer Mizutsune, Night Clock Malfestio, and Rust Razor Senator. This game, though, had something that I think, to me, kind of felt like even better than they doubled down on the idea of, let's just make a crap ton of content, like too much content, in my opinion, but to the point that it was impossible to find people online doing the exact same thing that you wanted to do because it was just too many monsters in the game. But they had it so that you could limit break the upgrade of any weapon in the game, whether it was the stupid ass hunter's dagger, it didn't matter. Like every single weapon could be broken off and made into a G-Rank version or a master rank viable weapon. So you had every permutation. There was over like 1,000 weapons for each. Like there was, what do you call it?
And I
you'd
think
have you'd have every permutation, right? You'd have like the strongest element, but with like blue sharpness, and you had like really high thunder and decent raw with white sharp. Like every little variation you can dream of existed.
It's
and
like,
so it made for.
I really want to drive the point home that some people might not instantly understand what you were saying, but like, imagine literally everything in the weapon tree, like every
had a final upgrade.
Every space in the weapon tree. I'm talking like we're talking down to the very most basic iron weapon. You can upgrade that specifically, not transform it into a new weapon. Just upgrade that specific thing and keep pushing it all the way to G-Rank if you wanted to.
Yep.
And that was really cool.
It was amazing. And because we had the hyper system, we also had 2 weapons per monster. Because you had the original line of it, and then you had the hyper line of it. The hyper version generally would have one exaggerated stat, so it would be like really high thunder with less raw versus the normal weapon, which might be a little bit more balanced. So you had, and those also had final forms. So it was ridiculous how many weapons you had.
Yeah.
But that just doubled down on the deviant system, and the grind became ridiculous. To do one of, not the new ones only had 5 levels, but like the old monsters, it had 15 now. And in order to grind out a set would be like, it would be a whole weekend of literally just grinding the same monster over and over again. It was pretty brutal.
The grind was massive, but it's also currently the Monster Hunter game with the most content available because the total monster count for Generations Ultimate, I think, last time I checked, I'm just drawing from my memory, I think it's like 92. It's 92 monsters if I'm not
But
mistaken.
the thing is, like, and I will say though that there is a certain element of sloppiness in the way that they did it because it was meant to be anniversary title.
Yeah.
So they didn't like exactly rework every monster to work for the new mechanics that they've introduced. So
Elatreon not so good.
Oh yeah. And then they also introduced all the 2nd generation maps and on top of like the 3rd and 4th generation maps, and they show like their age because they're all flat, they're all stupidly long. You die at the top of the old volcano, it takes you like 90 seconds to get back to the hunt. It's like, but the idea was to just have everything and all in one game, like everyone's here. So I appreciate it for that.
Yeah, it's a celebration more than anything. But yeah, that Generations Ultimate, when it came to its evolution from Generations to Generations Ultimate, basically what you ended up getting was new deviants, and some of the new deviants actually started at a higher. They had different levels. So
well,
that
they
high
rank and master
them.
rank, and they didn't have a low rank.
You didn't have to. It's interesting to say this, but you didn't have to grind the new deviants as much as the old ones.
Yeah.
So the old deviants would have like 15 levels of quests plus the EX version, which was just like so much. It's unthinkable. But they added like new levels to every single deviant. They added like new monsters. It's just content like that. That's what you got with GU. It wasn't even just like. We can say that the deviants are like kind of the end game system, going after and defeating all of the EX monsters, which I never did.
They just gave you too much to do.
Yeah, it was just like, here's all the content you can possibly imagine. You're never going to finish this game. Have fun. Yeah. That's kind of like what GU did with the master version, the master rank ultimate.
Some people didn't like because it made it so it was very hard to come up with an objective of what you wanted to do. But for people who could come up with things they wanted to do, it was endless.
Yeah, pretty much.
Then World came out. World had 19 new monsters, which is a hell of a lot. So 19 new monsters was remember it also had this was the first time they were actually able to do updates to a game. Up until this point everything was shipped on the game. So for example, what's a good example? Like Silver Rathalos, the Hyper Silver Rathalos wasn't available until like, I don't know, like 9 months after the game came out here in Japan from Generations Ultimate, because the set was like really good and really hard to make because that monster was a real pain. But they time locked it, so they only released it as an event quest after, a half a year or whatever. So it was like DLC, but it was already on the game card. It's just that you were unlocking it, right?
On disc DLC.
Yeah.
But
it
wasn't paid for. It wasn't paid for.
No.
So it's not as bad.
Yeah. So
wait, did you say 9 months or 6 months?
Yeah, it was like 6 or 9. It was a long time.
Because if it was 9 months, it was like delivering a baby.
Oh man. Well, then Generations Ultimate also did the Ultimate Sin, in my opinion. And Capcom, I love you, but you dropped the ball on this one. But there was one skill added to the Prowler in Generations or Double Cross in Japan, which was a weakness exploit for Prowler. It was a special cat that they gave away that had it, which meant you could then start teaching it to all your other cats. And they forgot to release it in the West. So weakness exploit, when people have it, but it's because they hacked it in there. They never officially released it, which is just bad. But anyways, they'll learn from that. But now we're in modern times, right? So games can be updated. They can squash bugs, they can add features, they can add monsters. It's a good time to be alive. So I'm including all the monsters outside of even base. So when I say 19, it was actually more like probably like 14, on par with the other games. But then they added monsters over the course of a year, which gave them more time to develop them, which also made a lot of the fights a lot better. Like a lot of the fights that they added in later, I think, were really good. They were more than just, a reskin. So you had Anjanath, Radabon, Kuluyaku, Puke, Tsiziyaku, Basilgeuse, Legiana, Paolumu, Geratodus, Dodogama, Great Gyros, Great Jagras, Odogaron, Tobikadachi, Kalvtarath, Nergigante, Vel'Hazak, Xenojiva, and Zora Magdaros. It's a lot of monsters, and the end game system for that was basically
tempered investigations.
Tempered monsters. Yeah. Tempered, and that was tied to decorations, yeah.
Yeah, tempered investigations tied to decorations. You guys need to understand, before World, you could always craft decorations. And in World, they changed that where decorations were random, but you could craft charms. The community is still divided on this topic, interestingly enough.
Yep, I know.
I need to make an updated poll, and I can make a video about it later, but I need to make an updated poll as how people feel at the moment.
I think it's a psychological thing. I really do.
Yeah.
Because like, previously Rise, people are like, yeah, but you can hunt anything now and get the best, the best pull from the best pool of talismans, but people are like, but I want it on the results screen of that hunt. I don't want to have it to be separate. And all they have to do is pre-spend those tickets for me. Just give me 2 random, charms from that hunt. I'm like, it's the same thing. If anything, it's more restricted. I don't care. It's different. I'm like, it is psychologically different.
It's not only that, but left to their own devices, as I don't remember who was it that said it, but left to their own devices, players will optimize the fun out of a game. So whereas I would be hunting like every monster under the sun, people would be complaining in my videos why do I have to keep hunting Narwa? And I'm like, well, you don't. And it's like, but it's the most efficient way. And I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, sure, go hunt Narwa, I guess. It's like,
efficient doesn't always mean fun.
I've barely hunted Narwa at all, which would definitely show whenever they added the harder versions of Narwa. And people would go into my stream, it's like, oh my God, do you even hunt this much? It's like, no, I don't. I don't like it. It's like,
here, me and we were just hunting her for fun. We didn't even care about the talismans.
Yeah, but it's like, I personally liked the way that they did it because, like, you could hunt literally any monster and you would always get materials that you could pump into the melding thing. So it's like whatever. But
so I'll try to speed us up because I know this is supposed to be a shorter episode, but we're going long. But Monster Hunter World Iceborne added in 17 monsters. So that was Black Veil Valhazak, Fosterang Barioth, Ruinary Nergigante, Seizing Battlegeese, Shrieking Legiana, Acidic Glavenus, Coral Puke, Fulgur Anjanath, lots of subspecies, Ebony Odogaron, Nightshade Paolumu, Viper Tobikadachi, Namiel, Beotodus, Banbaro, Safajiva, Shara Ishivalda, and Velkana. So, like that also amazing. Bambaro, he's the man. I actually don't have a list for Rise because I wrote this list before Rise came out. which is good because I've talked enough, and Rise is current enough that people know what's in the game.
Yeah.
But I'd say the end game in Iceborne was really interesting because they took the ideas from the past games and they put them all in there, right? But they had the benefit of being able to update the game later and improve on it based on player feedback, and I think they did a really good job because I came back after half a year and I fell in love with the end game. I hated it initially. I really did not like it. But they had the idea of the grinding lands, as we jokingly call it, but the guiding lands. So the guiding lands was just like that free hunt area that had all the biomes, all the monsters, and that was where you got parts to augment your weapons.
I think that the guiding lands is potentially, out of all of the end game systems that I've seen in Monster Hunter, guiding lands is my favorite. And I know that not everybody likes it, but it was just such an amazing thing that you basically would get to the end of the game and you're like, here's a brand new map. Because if you think about previous entries, right, you would always get like maybe one map tops per G-Rank, right? It was always one map. Like I know that for Generations, you got the Ruined Pinnacle. I don't know what you got for 4 Ultimate because, in the West, we only got 4 Ultimate, so I don't know which map it was. I also don't know what you got for 3 Ultimate. Which map was it? Do you know?
I don't know.
But yeah, in World, we got like Hoarfrost Reach, and then we got Guiding Lands. So I would expect at least one new map for Sunbreak. But I think we discussed this a long time ago in the podcast, and you were saying that you expected like 2 or 3.
I consider the Hoarfrost Reach to be like 3 maps, 2 or 3, because it unlocks gradually. You had like the lower part, the middle part, and the upper part,
massive.
And different tiers of monsters appeared in those, and it was a really big map. So I kind of feel like, just with the nature of the game, I think I'm expecting 3 new fields for Sunbreak.
3 new? I think 3 is a little bit overreach. I think maybe
2 for sure, though. Definitely more than 1.
More than 1 for sure. Yeah, but the maps are simpler in Rise, and at this point, guys, we're just like kind of like trying to establish what you can kind of expect for Sunbreak, and potentially 2 to 3 new maps, maybe, depending on whether or not they do something similar to Guiding Lands. I don't know if they would or not. I don't think they would do something just like Guiding Lands, but I could potentially
it's a portable game still. They don't want people having to play long sessions and stuff like that.
So it's probably 2 to 3 new areas. I'm leaning more towards 2. Gaijin, are you leaning more towards 3? I don't know.
Yeah, I'm leaning more towards 3.
Okay. We're going to get
we're going to a brand new region for the story, and I don't think that they could possibly get away with just 2 new areas for a whole new story. I think they would double down for 3, because you got to remember the base game is all the hard work, right? Like finding out the bounds of the system, like how big can the maps be? How tall can they get? How low can they get? How do we program the geometry? Like all that hard base programming work is done on the base game. They know their boundaries right now, so they can now start, and they've been for a long time probably, building out other maps and other things. So I imagine it's incredibly faster for them to integrate different things. And I mean, Master Rank technically only has, it's only 1 difficulty thing, so I don't think like, I just don't see how they can. I can't formulate my thoughts. Yeah, I'm just gonna say whatever. I think 3, but I would say, I mean, Ultimate releases are never exactly the same size as the base game, so to say. They're usually like, like half or more, depending. But there's usually like some type of mechanic, or just the fact that once you have Master Rank armor, it generally means like, okay, like it doesn't get any better than this, so you kind of like want to make all the armor for all the monsters.
Yeah.
Because they're all gonna, like, they are the best versions that they can be. So it's like, now I can say I've bested that monster. I don't have to fight it again. Kind of idea.
And the
for better or worse.
so I would expect, like we're saying, 2 to 3 maps potentially. A lot more monsters. How many of those are going to be?
All the big ones.
Yeah, there's going to be a bunch of subspecies for sure. There's going to probably be like a lot of new monsters as well. There's going to be some returning ones. In terms of what we'd like to see with returnings, I mean, me and Gaijin have said it repeatedly: give us Duran Moran or give us death. We want a big spectacle fight. Failing that, a Talca would also be really cool. I think everybody wants Gore Magala. Super Rad wants Legiacris. I'd like Legiacris as well. But
I don't. I'm the one person who I actually don't care. Anything is good with me.
People who are wondering, is there going to be underwater combat in Sunbreak? Probably not, because these are features that you would expect to see in the base game.
That's a game-changing feature, right? And then you'd get a really weird point where it's like, okay, imagine the consumer who's just buying Sunbreak and the base game as one packaged game, right? Like, because they didn't play Rise. They were waiting. Their first initial experience of the game for like over half of it, there's not going to be any underwater. Like the entire definition of what the game is, and the movesets don't revolve around it, and none of the monsters, the fights, the rampage, everything is completely disconnected. It's like literally forcing someone to play the previous game before they could play the sequel. Like at that point.
So it's like,
I think they have to tie it in.
Changing features like that, like people ask, like, do you think there's going to be underwater? Do you think there's going to be like new weapons? No, new weapons probably not as well. I mean, I'm not going to say never, but I would highly doubt that they would introduce a new weapon in a G-Rank / Master Rank / Ultimate expansion, because it's never been done, basically.
Yeah.
That's
something you would want to do for like a numbered title, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
To help define it, like the Insect Glaive was the poster boy of Monster Hunter 4, right? Because
Insect
it was
Glaive
like,
and Charge Blade.
But it was very obvious in Japan that they added that as an afterthought, because that was in the base 4, and it just was not nearly as fleshed out in 4. They changed that in 4 Ultimate, obviously, but it was much more basic in 4, and it felt a little last minute. And the whole idea of mounting and
even the starting cinematic shows the Insect Glaive prominently. So yes, it does make sense. But it's like, for all those of you wanting like a new weapon or something like that, that would have to be a Monster Hunter thing. I mean, almost sure that at the end of the day, we don't have inside information. We're just speculating based on previous experiences. For all we know, Sunbreak, here's a new weapon, but the data would indicate otherwise from our experience. Like,
my
that
guess,
is the game
though, if I had to, is I think it would make sense if they did something like they did with Generations Ultimate, where or even 4 Ultimate for that, or 4 for that matter, is that I think that they would add in a new variation on every monster. For example, like we have this bloodlust thing going on, or this blood bat thing going on with what's his name?
Malzeno.
Yeah. Malzeno. So like you have sort of like the frenzied monsters, they would almost like pseudo die, and then they would like come back, and they were like much stronger and deadly. Then you had hyper monsters, which I really enjoyed in Generations, where certain parts of their body would start to glow randomly, and those parts of the monster would deal much more damage. But if you hit them, you'd get your gauge build up faster. Like it was like a just raising the stakes kind of thing. I really like that. I imagine they'll have some sort of version of hyper, whatever, blah blah, like add in adjective, right, and then monster. So some type of descriptor. Would be a very easy way to make variations on armor.
They
and
gave us
stuff.
They gave us Apex monsters in base Rise, so this would be something that would be added on top of that potentially.
On top of it, because I almost see like I'm looking at Apex or like the Deviants from Generations, and I think that we need something that sort of replaces something like Hyper. So something, it's like tempered in World, right? It's like something that just makes them a little bit more deadly, and we can add in some different rewards. I think would be perfect.
I could see them do that, particularly in a follow up like Sunbreak, which is from the portable team, as we were talking about. Like, I could see them being a lot experimental with it, and I would even argue arcadey, because the game definitely feels extremely arcadey and less like the simulation that we've expected, that we've seen in previous games. So,
but what excites me a lot about this one, this is a new director debut though. Suzuki-san has not been. He's worked on tons of the past games as a game designer, but he's not been a director, right? So I'm really interested, because the director kind of gets to call the shots on how to make that end game, right? And how to, if they want to add in an end of game mechanic that you do post credits, where you can really dig in hours and feel like you're getting new stuff out of it, that's their call. So it'd be very interesting to see what he has plans for. I think, Daisuke was in a bad spot with Double Cross or Generations Ultimate, because that was designed, I think, in my opinion, to be like a one-off release. I don't think it was meant to get an expansion, but I think they needed to buy time for World to get finished. And so like they already had an endgame system in the base game, so you had like deviants and all that. So it's like he just kind of like tacked on more, because I just don't think they had a plan for it. But then he proved his muscle in Iceborne. I thought, when it first came out, it had some issues, but they fixed them. The Gaijin lands were fantastic, I think.
Yeah.
So I don't know what there was literally, I would say, no so-called endgame loop in Monster Hunter Rise. Really, I mean, even the Apex monsters were part of the critical progression. They were part of the rampage. So I wouldn't even consider them post-credit content.
A lot of people considered the charm system to be an endgame system. I don't think I'd go that far.
I don't. No, I wouldn't either. Because, I mean, ultimately, the charm system really, at the end of the day, only required slots. It didn't actually matter what the skills were. If you got a decoration with a 2-2-1, like, you're set. You can make pretty much almost every set in the game just with the decorations, because they're almost all, they're all craftable. So
yeah, with the skills, just like it lets you create more extravagant sets, but yeah.
Yeah. And then, the rampage weapons, I guess you can kind of consider them post-game content, but like maybe not the most engaging for people. I don't think they're gonna.
This is our final.
I still think they're gonna step away from.
Yeah,
Rampage.
that's what I was gonna say. This is our final chance to talk about our Rampage is gonna be there or not. You're thinking not. I'm thinking not. Right? No Rampage for some. Rampage is gonna be just like a base Rise feature.
It was a cool idea, and it works really good for Kamuta Village for the story. I think they would embrace the idea of not doing it in Sunbreak. I think try something new, but I think they learned some cool things not to do and things to do. There were some cool ideas.
Again, that's one of the advantages of these ones, is that they get to experiment with them and go crazy and figure stuff out. And then when the numbered series come around, they pick and choose. Okay, we like this thing, we didn't like that thing. So it's an experimental thing.
Now, what I want to see them do, though, I want to see them go back to what they did in Generations, which is allow you to make final grade upgrades for every weapon in the game. I do think the UI would look really ridiculous. It would like wait, what the hell? Like
they'd have to revamp I think that's the whole UI for it.
Yeah, but I think that would be cool. I think that'd be fun.
That would be cool. Whether or not they're going to do it, though, I don't know.
I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see.
I think they will definitely add in something for Apex monsters. I think they'll definitely add in like armor for them, because I think that was a global feedback from all players that they wanted something. But I hope they do something like the Deviants, where it's like no slots, but it's like very special, very cool armor that like embraces, that monster.
Like I said, I just don't want to see like the level of power creep that we saw in Iceborne, which is just like,
it was too much.
New monsters out. This is now the best stuff. New monsters out. This is now the best stuff. I don't want that.
But I don't think they need to, because it's a portable game.
Yeah. But that's kind of like,
that brings us to the end of the history.
That's kind of like how we would temper your expectations as to what to expect for Sunbreak. It's like, I wouldn't go in expecting new weapons. I wouldn't go in expecting like underwater combat at this point. Like we said, those we think are game defining things that would come with the next game in the franchise. What you should expect is a lot of new monsters. So I'm going to throw a number out there in between like subspecies and all of that stuff. I think that by the time they're done with their updates, I think we see like 30 more monsters. Minimum, if not more. Like I'm talking like with updates and stuff. That's what I would shoot for. Because like if you think about it, the in terms of just like looks, these monsters.
Remember, Iceborne was 17.
17, but like
17.
How is
updates?
The totals though? I'm talking about.
Huh?
Wait, so 17 new things and with updates. But the thing is, I believe that the geometry, for starters, they have a new engine, which is not the MT framework engine. They're working on, I mean, it's not a new engine, it's RE engine. And RE engine appears to be much easier to work with. So I would imagine that for them, it's easier to make the monsters. On top of it, these monsters are not as visually detailed as the monsters in World. And when I say new monsters, by the way, I'm talking about like new monsters added to the game. So like returning monsters and actually
subspecies.
Yeah, returning monsters, subspecies.
I'm gonna put my gut at 20, just because we have like the past games is like 17, 18, 17, 19, 18.
I think they're gonna blow us out of the water with 30, dude.
That'd be awesome.
I think that's what they'll do. You're going to see like new upgrades for your weapons, take them all the way up to G rank. You're going to see new, obviously.
I hope they add in a dojo for the cats. I really hope they add a dojo, because it would be really nice to be able to teach skills.
We kind of have a dojo already, but what Gaijin is saying is swapping skills between palicos. So like if you have a palico that has a certain skill, you can teach that skill to another palico. That would be cool, because it would make it a lot easier for people to make their perfect palico, which right now is a nightmare. I was super lucky. I got 2 palicos exactly like I wanted, like one after the other on PC. It was like that. It's like, boom, I'm done.
Okay. And I got an idea that will blow your mind.
Okay.
I don't think they'll do it, but if they do, oh my God. So
Take notes, Capcom.
Yeah. So well, it depends on how good the idea is, but I was envisioning this the other day. I was thinking about it. So you have, obviously the Palamute is special because you can ride it, and the Palico is just kind of there and assisting you in doing its attack and stuff, right? So taking the idea of something similar to the Palico, so something that you're not riding on or interacting with, but something that can do lots of different abilities, wouldn't it be cool if there was a third type of pet and the owls can join the fight? So you can have a fighting owl with you. I can't remember their names. I feel bad.
Cahoots.
Cahoots. Can you imagine having battle cahoots that can do different things like palicos?
It feels like they would be frail.
No, well, they're flying above the monster, dumping crap on everybody. Like they're safe.
I don't know. What I would like to see even more than that?
Okay, never mind, Capcom. It was a bad idea.
No. I don't think it's a bad idea, but I'll tell you something that I would like to see even more than that. I would like to see them bring back something that they did for Ultimate, which was combination attacks with your palicos.
Yeah, that'd be neat.
And then not just attacks, like combination skills. Like sometimes you'd be, for those of you that never played for Ultimate, sometimes
those exist in Rise. They're just super obscure and they're impossible to see. But
really?
They actually do exist. Yeah, there's certain moves that your dog will do if you do certain attacks with certain weapons. There are combinations that trigger, but everything's so fast and crazy.
No. But I want to see something like, when you got the Wrath of Meow, that in 4U, it actually took like 2 palicos getting together to bring out the Wrath of Meow. That's the level of stuff that I want to see. When you had like the really big health horn, that both palicos would go in there, start dancing, and then they would blow the horns, like, boom, massive heal for everybody. And this was cool because you would actually, say you were playing with 2 players, you'd need to have palicos that were compatible and that would have the same skill, and then it would like trigger it together. It's like, boom, go. And that was friggin' awesome. And that is what I would like to see. I want to see those crazy combinations with them, because I play with 2 palicos. I mean, even have them combined with the Palamute. Like maybe the palico rides the Palamute into battle all of a sudden. That'd be cool.
Yeah, we got artwork showing the palico riding on a Palamute.
The palico
concept art.
Don't they ride on the Palamute sometimes when you're in a quest?
They might actually, yeah.
I think they do. Yeah, it's like,
but
the thing is, I've been playing double palico.
The game to be very finessed.
Yeah, I've been playing double palico for so long that I don't even know. But yeah. But basically, it's like we were saying, it's an expansion. It's not something that's going to completely change the game. It's just more of what you like about Rise. So let's put it like this: if you're one of the people that you got to Rise and you're like, I didn't like the base version of Rise, I'm not sure that Sunbreak's going to change your mind.
I don't think it would.
Yeah, I think that
because the DNA of the game is set. It is the DNA of the game. The wire bug is the wire bug. The speed, the formula, the feel, I think is set.
If you're someone that's in the camp that like, okay, World was much better and I regret having played Rise, then you're better off waiting for the next one. I'm just being real. Like I don't think Sunbreak's going to. I don't think it's going to change your mind.
But I do think Sunbreak will be, if you liked Rise, but there's something about it that felt lacking.
Yeah.
It was just something about the release that felt kind of off, a little.
If you feel like
it, then I think this will be the one for you.
Yeah, if you feel like Rise was good, but you felt like you ran out of content too fast, Sunbreak is definitely going to be for you.
I think it's going to hit a home run. I think I think they know what they're doing.
But we'll have more to tell you on that next week. I'll be live streaming the whole thing. The actual event as it happens. I'll be live streaming it. I don't know exactly what time that is going to be at, but if you're available,
it's in 10 minutes from now. It's
10 minutes from now, dude. Yeah. Do you want to be on the stream?
No, I'm going to be in the living room watching it with you. No, we're gonna get popcorn. We're gonna have a blast.
Okay, fine. Be that way.
What are this?
Can't believe you'd rather watch this with your daughter than with me. But okay.
Hey, children trump in-game spouses.
Yeah, sure. Anyway. Guys, we'll have more to say about this obviously next week. We just wanted to kind of like set the stage, tell you guys a little bit about the history of development of Monster Hunter so that people go in with realistic expectations. They're not expecting like, oh my God, Sunbreak is going to explode everything. It's like, I'm super hyped for Sunbreak because I loved Rise. I still love Rise. So,
I love Japan and the whole theme of that village, but you also have to remember, like, I was a goth in high school. Like, I love Western medieval gothic crap, the edgelord stuff. I love it. So, like, Dark Souls, Bloodborne. Now we're going to be going to like castles with knights and vampire inspired. Oh, come on, sign me up. I'm awesome. So excited. It's going to be good.
But yeah, that's going to be it for this episode, which was supposed to be shorter, but turned out to be about usual length. So we'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe.
Happy hunting.